Come closer, child. Close your eyes, and let me take you back. Back to a time of castles, cobblestone streets, and quiet fires flickering in the night. You're not dreaming. You're time traveling. You've just arrived in the medieval era. Listen carefully. The story begins now. Ready to fall asleep with me? Let's begin. Let us begin our quiet journey through time, back to an age far removed from our own. A time when life was simpler, yet infinitely harsher. Imagine, if you will, waking not to the gentle chime of an alarm, but to the cold light of dawn seeping through cracks in a wooden hut. The year is 1325, and this is your life now. Your bed is nothing more than straw piled in a corner, scratchy and crawling with tiny inhabitants who share your warmth. There are no soft sheets here, no plush pillows, just the earthy scent of hay and the ever-present musk of human existence. As you stir, your joints protest. At 22, you're already feeling the weight of years of labor. This is middle age in medieval times. The church bell tolls in the distance, its deep vibrations carrying across the village. This is your wake-up call, relentless and unchanging. Around you, your family begins to stir, parents, siblings, perhaps a cousin or two, all sharing this single room with its dirt floor and smoky hearth. Privacy is a concept yet to be invented. Rising brings its own challenges. The floor is cold and uneven beneath your bare feet. Last night's rain has left puddles that seeped through the thatched roof. You dress quickly in the same tunic you've worn for months, its rough wool stiff with sweat and grime. There are no wardrobes here, no changing of outfits, just the one set of clothes that slowly becomes part of you. Breakfast is a humble affair. A wooden bowl holds yesterday's pottage, a thick gray stew of grains and whatever vegetables could be spared. The bread is dark and dense, requiring real effort to chew. You wash it down with weak ale, because the water from the village well cannot be trusted. There's no coffee here, no tea, no sweetness to start your day. Just enough sustenance to keep you working until sunset. As you step outside, the village comes alive around you. The air carries a symphony of smells: wood smoke, animal dung, baking bread, and the ever-present undertone of human waste. The streets are unpaved, turning to mud in rain and dust in sun. Chickens scatter as you pass, while pigs root through piles of refuse. This is no fairy tale village. This is survival, day after day. Your work begins with the sun. If you're fortunate, you might be a craftsman, a blacksmith, a carpenter, a weaver. More likely, you're bound to the land, your back bent in fields that don't belong to you. Every movement is labor. No machines to ease the strain, just simple tools and the strength of your body. The Lord's overseer watches, ensuring no moment is wasted. The sun climbs higher, its heat pressing down despite your rough woolen clothes. There's no sunscreen here, no sunglasses, no breathable fabrics. You sweat and itch, the salt stinging your eyes. Flies buzz around your face, drawn to the moisture. When the church bell rings for noon, you're granted a brief respite. More pottage, more ale, then back to work until the light fades. As afternoon wanes, your body aches in ways modern minds can scarcely imagine. Hands cracked and bleeding, shoulders stiff as wood, feet toughened yet tender from constant use. There are no painkillers here, no ergonomic tools, just endurance day after day. The concept of retirement doesn't exist. You'll work until you can, and then you'll depend on the mercy of family. Evening brings its own rituals. The fire must be tended, animals fed, what little food remains prepared. There's no electric light, just the flickering glow of tallow candles that smoke more than they illuminate. Conversation is quiet, stories shared to pass the time before sleep claims you once more. The day ends as it began, on that pile of straw, listening to the sounds of a family sleeping, of animals shifting in the night, of a world that knows nothing of comfort as we understand it. This was life for most people in medieval times, not the grand castles and chivalric tournaments of storybooks, but endless toil, discomfort, and the constant struggle for survival. The average person would never see the inside of a castle, never meet a knight, never attend a feast. Their world was small, hard, and often short. Yet within it, they found meaning, community, and moments of joy that sustained them through the harshest of times. Now let us drift forward through the centuries to a very different world of power and palaces, to the story of a woman who would become one of history's most remarkable rulers, Catherine the Great. Born in 1729 as Sophie of Anhalt-Zerbst, she arrived in Russia as a young German princess, chosen to marry the heir to the Russian throne. The court she entered was unlike anything she had known, opulent yet dangerous, where a wrong word could mean ruin. Her husband, the future Peter III, proved to be childish and cruel, leaving Catherine isolated in a foreign land. But Catherine was no ordinary woman. While Peter played with toy soldiers, she studied the Russian language, politics, philosophy. She cultivated allies among the nobility and military, biding her time with the patience of a born strategist. When Peter finally became Tsar in 1762, his incompetence and pro-Prussian policies alienated the court. After just 6 months, Catherine staged a bloodless coup, declaring herself empress while Peter was arrested and later killed under mysterious circumstances. Her reign would transform Russia. Catherine embraced the ideals of the Enlightenment while maintaining absolute power. She corresponded with Voltaire and Diderot, expanded educational opportunities, and reorganized provincial governments. Yet she was no radical. When a massive peasant revolt led by Pugachev threatened the social order, she crushed it mercilessly, showing the steel beneath her cultured exterior. Under Catherine, Russia's borders expanded dramatically through wars with the Ottomans and partitions of Poland. The arts flourished, with the Hermitage Museum beginning as her personal collection. She wrote plays, operas, and even a manual for educating children. Yet her private life scandalized Europe. A succession of younger lovers, each carefully chosen and generously pensioned off when their time passed. By the time of her death in 1796, Catherine had ruled for 34 years, leaving Russia transformed into a major European power. She remains one of history's most fascinating contradictions, an enlightened despot, a cultured conqueror, a woman who wielded absolute power in a man's world. Her legacy endures not just in Russia's borders, but in the very idea of what a woman could achieve when intelligence and opportunity met ruthless determination. As we leave Catherine's story behind, let us return to quieter thoughts, to the simple rhythms of medieval life, where time moved with the seasons rather than the clock. Consider now the simple act of eating in medieval times. There were no supermarkets, no refrigerators, no neatly packaged meals. Each bite was earned through relentless labor. The bread you ate was coarse and dark, ground from rye or barley between heavy millstones. It contained not just grain, but often grit from the stones themselves, slowly wearing down teeth over a lifetime. The pottage, simmering in the iron cauldron, might contain peas, onions, perhaps a bit of salted pork if the harvest had been good. Spices were unimaginable luxuries. A single peppercorn could cost a day's wages. Salt was so precious, it was kept locked away, doled out in careful pinches. The seasons dictated everything. In spring, tender greens would appear to break the monotony of stored grains. Summer brought fresh vegetables from small kitchen gardens, cabbages, leeks, turnips growing in neat rows. Autumn meant frantic work, harvesting, slaughtering animals that could preserving what could be saved through smoking, salting, or drying. Winter was survival. Meager meals from the stores. Hunger always lurking if the harvest had been poor. The concept of balanced diet didn't exist. You ate what could be grown or raised and thanked God for it. Now let your mind drift to the medieval home. Not the grand castles of storybooks, but the wattle and daub cottages where most people lived. The walls were made of woven branches, plastered with mud and dung, the roof thatched with straw that needed constant repair. A single room served for cooking, eating, sleeping, and sheltering animals in harsh weather. The floor was packed earth, swept but never truly clean. Smoke from the central hearth curled up to a hole in the roof, blackening the rafters over years of use. In winter, the fire was kept burning day and night, the only source of warmth against the bitter cold. In summer, the small windows were covered with oiled parchment or wooden shutters, keeping the space dim even at midday. The furniture was sparse and crude, a trestle table that could be dismantled, a few stools, perhaps a chest for precious belongings. Beds were simply straw-filled sacks on wooden platforms, shared by the whole family. Privacy didn't exist in the way we know it. Every cough, every whispered conversation, every intimate moment happened within earshot of others. Yet within these humble spaces, lives unfolded. Children were born, stories were told, love was made, and the dead were mourned. As we leave these simple dwellings behind, let us turn our thoughts to the medieval year, marked not by calendars and clocks, but by the sacred rhythms of the church and the land. The great feasts, Christmas, Easter, Pentecost, structured the year like beads on a rosary. Between these holy days stretched the endless work of survival, plowing, planting, weeding, harvesting. Each season had its labors and its small pleasures. Spring brought relief from winter's grip and the first fresh foods. Summer meant long days in the fields and village festivals. Autumn was both bounty and anxiety, storing enough for winter while paying the Lord's share. Winter was darkness and waiting, huddled around fires while the wind howled outside. The church's bells marked not just hours of prayer, but the very framework of time itself. Matins at dawn, lauds at sunrise, prime in early morning, terce at mid-morning, sext at noon, none in mid-afternoon, vespers at sunset, compline at bedtime, 8 canonical hours dividing day and night. For most people,
was measured not in minutes, but in these sacred intervals, in the movement of the sun across the sky, in the slow turning of the seasons. There was no rushing, no schedules to keep, only the patient rhythm of nature and faith. Now, let us consider health in these distant times. When illness struck, there were no hospitals as we know them, only the care of family and perhaps the local wise woman with her knowledge of herbs. Fevers might be treated with cool cloths and willow bark tea. Wounds were cleaned with vinegar or honey. Broken bones were set with splints and prayer. Childbirth was dangerous. Nearly every woman knew someone who had died bringing new life into the world. Infant mortality was heartbreakingly common. Perhaps 1 in 3 children never saw their 5th birthday. Those who survived childhood might live to 40 or 50 if they were fortunate, their bodies worn out by relentless labor. The Black Death that swept Europe in the 14th century took nearly half the population in some regions. Whole villages vanished, leaving empty houses and untended fields. The plague respected no rank. Peasant and noble fell alike. In its wake, the world changed forever. Labor became valuable. Old certainties crumbled, and the medieval order began its slow transformation into something new. Yet through all this suffering, life persisted. People loved, created, rebuilt. The human spirit, though battered, could not be extinguished. As sleep draws nearer, let your mind rest on simpler things. The sound of a wooden plow turning heavy earth, the smell of fresh baked bread carried on morning air, the warmth of a hearth after a long day's work. These were the small comforts that made life bearable in a time far removed from our own. The medieval world was harsh by our standards, but it knew its own beauty. The play of light through stained glass, the intricate patterns of a woven tapestry, the haunting melodies of Gregorian chant echoing through stone vaults. In the darkness of the abbey church, illuminated only by flickering candles, the divine felt near at hand.
Let us now turn our thoughts to medieval clothing. Imagine the rough texture of homespun wool against your skin, scratchy and stiff with lanolin. There were no soft cottons or smooth synthetics, just wool in winter, linen in summer, both woven on simple looms. Dyes were precious, so most garments wore the natural colors of sheep's wool, browns, grays, creamy whites. Only the wealthy could afford vibrant reds from madder root or deep blues from woad. Each piece of clothing represented countless hours of work, shearing, cleaning, carding, spinning, weaving, sewing, all by hand. A single shirt might take weeks to create, and would be worn until it literally fell apart. Shoes were simple leather bags for the feet, tied with thongs. In winter, layers of wool and straw in clogs kept frostbite at bay. There were no washing machines, no dry cleaners, just the river's edge and a washing bat for pounding dirt from fabric. Now picture the medieval village at dusk. The sun sinks below the thatched roofs, painting the wattle and daub walls in golden light. Chickens scratch in the dirt lanes as they're herded into coops for the night. Smoke curls lazily from cooking fires, carrying the scent of simmering pottage. Children play with simple toys, carved wooden figures, balls of rags, perhaps a hoop rolled with a stick. The day's last chores are done, animals fed, tools put away, evening meal consumed. As darkness falls, candles of tallow or rushlights sputter to life, their faint glow barely pushing back the night. Without electric lights, the village settles into a profound darkness we can scarcely imagine today, broken only by moonlight or the occasional torch. The air cools quickly without modern insulation, driving families to huddle close around banked hearths. Soon, the village sleeps, silent but for the occasional owl's cry or barking dog. Consider now the medieval mind. Their world was both smaller and larger than ours. Smaller in that most would never travel more than 10 miles from their birthplace. Larger in that every stream might hide spirits, every forest conceal fair folk, every eclipse signal divine displeasure. The church provided answers for the great questions, while folk wisdom explained daily mysteries. Time moved differently, not in minutes and hours, but in seasons and sacraments. The past was living memory and oral tradition, the future as uncertain as next year's harvest. Death was ever present in the churchyard's crowded graves, in the constant illness, in the artwork depicting dancing skeletons. Yet life persisted, celebrated in village festivals and sacred holidays. People laughed at bawdy stories, wept at tragedies, loved their children, just as we do today, only against a backdrop we would find unimaginably harsh. Let us drift now to the medieval monastery. In the pre-dawn darkness, a bell tolls for matins. The monks rise from simple pallets, don their woolen habits, and make their way to the chapel. Their voices rise in Gregorian chant, the Latin psalms echoing off cold stone walls. After prayers come hours of labor, copying manuscripts in the scriptorium, tending herb gardens, brewing ale. The monastery is a self-contained world with its own rhythms and rules. Here, time is measured in ink strokes and prayers, in the turning
as wars rage outside their walls, copying not just Bibles, but works of philosophy, medicine, astronomy from antiquity. In their cloistered world, the flame of learning is kept alive through the darkest centuries. The scratch of quill on parchment is the sound of civilization enduring. Now imagine the medieval town. Unlike the quiet village, the town bustles with activity. Merchants hawk their wares in the market square. Bolts of Flemish cloth, spices from the east, iron tools from German smiths. Apprentices sweep workshop while masters inspect their work. Town criers announce the latest decree. The air smells of baking bread, tanned leather, and less pleasant things. 4 chamber pots are still emptied into the streets. At the town center stands the guild hall, where wealthy merchants regulate trade and collect taxes. Nearby, the massive cathedral rises toward heaven, its stained glass glowing like jewels in sunlight. Beggars cluster at its doors, hoping for alms from pious visitors. This is a world of sharp contrasts, crushing poverty and staggering wealth, piety and fight, all crowded within the town walls. At night, watchmen patrol with lanterns, calling the hours and warning of fires. The ever-present terror of closely packed wooden buildings. Let us consider now the medieval knight. Far from the romantic ideal, his life is one of discomfort and discipline. His armor, when he can afford it, weighs nearly 50 pounds, the metal heating in sun and freezing in winter. Underneath, he wears a padded gambeson that reeks of old sweat. His warhorse represents a huge investment, requiring careful training and constant care. Between battles, he trains endlessly, practicing with sword and lance, maintaining his equipment, managing his estates. The code of chivalry is more aspiration than reality, often broken in the heat of battle or the politics of court. Tournaments provide both practice and prestige, though the line between sport and deadly combat is thin. Jousting lances can kill as easily as splinter, and melees often turn brutal. Yet the knight represents an ideal of courage, of loyalty, of martial skill that will endure long after plate armor becomes obsolete. Now picture the medieval castle, not the pristine ruins we see today, but a living, noisy, smelly fortress. The great hall echoes with chatter, the clatter of dishes, the barking of dogs. Servants rush about with trays of food, while hunting hounds beg for scraps under tables. Smoke from the central hearth lingers in the rafters. The lord and lady sit at the high table, their clothing rich with color and embroidery. the stone walls weep with condensation despite tapestries hung for warmth. The privy is a chilly closet projecting over the moat, a long, uncomfortable walk at night. The castle is both home and military installation, its massive walls designed to withstand siege while housing a small community. At night, torches flicker in iron sconces, casting dancing shadows on stone. The wind howls through arrow slit, and the guards on the walls stamp their feet against the cold. This is no fairy tale palace, but a practical, often uncomfortable stronghold that represents power in a violent age. As sleep draws nearer, let us contemplate the medieval year. The calendar turns not on arbitrary dates, but on the sacred and agricultural cycles. Plow Monday marks the start of the farming year, when the fields are prepared for sowing. Candlemas in February brings the blessing of candles, their light a promise of returning sun. May Day celebrates fertility with dancing around flower-decked poles. Midsummer's Eve is alive with bonfires and superstition, a night when the veil between worlds grows thin. Harvest Home marks the end of the grueling reaping season with feasting and thanksgiving. All Hallows Eve brings remembrance of the dead when beggars go door to door offering prayers for souls in exchange for soul cakes. Christmas lasts 12 days of revelry before the austerity of Lent begins again. Each festival is both sacred ritual and needed respite from relentless labor, a chance to eat, drink, and forget winter's hunger for a time. Now, let your mind drift to medieval trade. Along muddy roads, ox carts creak under loads of wool and grain. Pack horses navigate narrow trails, their panniers full of salt or iron ingots. At river crossings, barges carry wine and timber downstream. In coastal towns, fishing boats brave treacherous seas while cogs from distant lands unload exotic goods. The merchant's life is one of constant travel and calculated risk. Bandits on the roads, pirates at sea, the vagaries of markets and weather. Yet through these low, dangerous networks, the medieval world is connected. English wool becomes Flemish cloth, becomes Italian finery. Spices from the East flavor noble tables, while Baltic amber decorates church altars. The Hanseatic League dominates northern trade, its cog ships linking London to Novgorod. In Mediterranean ports, Christian, Jewish, and Muslim merchants haggle in lingua franca. Commerce moves at walking pace, but it moves, laying the foundations of the modern economy. Consider now medieval medicine. The humors govern health, physician diagnoses by urine, color, and pulse, his treatments often worse than the disease. Leeches suck bad blood, while poultices of moldy bread might treat infection through dumb luck. Surgery is brutal and risky. Amputations performed with saws on screaming patients, held down by strong assistants. Childbirth is women's domain, with midwives relying on experience and folk wisdom. Monasteries preserve ancient medical texts while growing healing herbs in their gardens. The Black Death will devastate this fragile system, killing so many that old certainties crumble. Yet from this suffering will come progress, the first quarantine laws, public health measures, and eventually the Renaissance rediscovery of scientific medicine. For now, people endure as they always have, with prayer, herbal remedies, and stoic acceptance of suffering. As we near sleep's embrace, let us ponder medieval childhood. Swaddled tightly in linen bands, infants spend their first months like little cocoons. Toddlers crawl on dirt floors, learning early to avoid the hearth's danger. By 7, children work, girls helping with spinning and cooking, boys tending animals or apprenticing to trades. Play exists in stolen moments, dolls of rags, wooden swords, games of tag and hide and seek. Education is rare outside nobility and clergy, though some towns establish grammar schools. Discipline is harsh, for life is harsh, and parents cannot afford sentimentality. Yet medieval art shows children at play, and records mention toys and games, a reminder that youthful joy persists even in difficult times. The concept of childhood as we know it is centuries away, but the love between parent and child transcends eras. Now, imagine the medieval church, not just a place of worship, but the heart of community life. Its bells mark time, its calendar orders the year, its teachings shape every aspect of existence. The building itself is a Bible in stone, sculptures teaching scripture to the illiterate, stained glass bathing the nave in celestial light. Peasants stand through Mass, while nobles have private chapels. Pilgrims flock to shrines, hoping for miracles or penance. Relics, a saint's finger bone, a fragment of the true cross, draw the faithful from miles around. The priest is both spiritual guide and practical helper, writing letters, settling disputes, tending the sick. For all its power and occasional corruption, the church provides what no secular authority can: hope of salvation in a world full of suffering. Its rituals mark every life stage from baptism to last rites, offering comfort and meaning in an uncertain world. Let us finally contemplate medieval old age. In a time when 40 is considered elderly, the aged are both respected and vulnerable. Those with property might retire, signing it over to children in exchange for care. The landless face destitution unless the family provides. Grandparents tell stories by the fire, passing down wisdom and tradition. Their hands, gnarled from decades of labor, still card wool or whittle toys for grandchildren. The church exhorts the young to honor their elders, but reality is often harsh. Old beggars are common sights in towns, yet some achieve remarkable longevity, their survival a testament to tough constitutions and family loyalty. When death finally comes, it is usually at home, surrounded by family, with the priest administering last rites. The body is washed and wrapped in a shroud, then carried to the churchyard for burial in consecrated ground. The cycle continues, as it has for generations, as it will for generations more.
Let us now turn our thoughts to medieval festivals. Picture the village square decked with garlands of summer flowers, rough wooden tables groaning under simple fare. Roast meats, coarse bread, wheels of yellow cheese. The air hums with pipe and tabor music, the rhythmic thump of dancers' feet on packed earth. Maypole ribbons weave intricate patterns as young maidens and lads step carefully through the ancient dance. Laughter rings out, unburdened for this one day from life's usual toil. The lord of the manor presides over the festivities, distributing alms and allowing his tenants this brief respite. Children dart between legs, sticky with honey cakes, their shouts mingling with the bleating of prize sheep brought for showing. As evening falls, bonfires leap toward the twilight sky, their sparks swirling like fireflies among the thatched roofs. For one golden day, hunger and hardship are forgotten in ale and celebration. Now imagine the medieval winter. The world shrinks to the circle of firelight as howling winds rattle shutters. Days are short and dim, the sun barely clearing the horizon before sinking again. Breath hangs visible in the frigid air inside poorly insulated homes. Nights are long and silent, but for the crackle of burning logs and the occasional cough from sleeping forms huddled together for warmth. The winter diet is monotonous. Salted meat, dried beans, grain porridge, whatever root vegetables survived the frost in underground pits. Fresh food is a distant memory and a far-off promise. Work continues despite the cold,
chopping firewood, mending tools, spinning wool by the meager light of rush dips. The cold seeps into bones, never fully banished until spring's return. Yet even in this bleak season, there are joys. The warmth of fresh-baked bread, the crisp beauty of frost on bare branches, the camaraderie of shared hardship. Consider now medieval marriage. Unions are practical affairs arranged by families to secure land or alliances. A bride might be just 12 years old, her dowry carefully recorded in the marriage contract. The ceremony itself is simple. Vows exchanged at the church door, followed by mass inside. Afterwards, the wedding party processes noisily through the village to the bride's new home, where ale and food await. The bedding ceremony is a rowdy affair, with guests literally putting the couple to bed together amid jokes and crude advice. Love matches do occur, but are considered frivolous by most. Marriage is first an economic partnership. Yet, within these practical unions, affection often grows over years of shared life and child rearing. Wives manage households with formidable skill, overseeing servants, preserving food, brewing ale, and often assisting with their husband's trade. A good marriage means survival. A bad one can mean misery in an era without divorce. Now picture the medieval mill. The water wheel turns endlessly, its wooden paddles slapping the stream with rhythmic regularity. Inside, flour dust hangs thick in the air, coating the miller's clothes and eyelashes in a fine white powder. The grinding stones rumble as they crush grain between them, their surfaces carefully carved with grooves to aid the process. The miller is both respected and mistrusted, his skill essential to the village, but his exact tolls a constant source of grumbling. Bags of grain come in from surrounding farms to be returned as sacks of flour, minus the miller's share. The mill's steady heartbeat marks time for the community, as regular as the church bells, as inevitable as the seasons. Its stones wear down over decades, to be recarved by itinerant millwrights when they become too smooth. This is technology at its most vital, transforming the raw stuff of life into sustenance. Let us contemplate medieval night. Without electric lights, darkness is profound and absolute once the sun sets. Indoors, rushlights or tallow candles provide feeble illumination, just enough to avoid stumbling over furniture. The wealthy might afford beeswax candles with their cleaner burn, but even these push back only a small circle of night. Outdoors, moonlight dictates activity, a bright full moon allowing for travel. brings dangerous darkness. Night watchmen patrol town streets, calling the hours and warning of fires. Superstition fills the shadows with spirits and demons, making night a time of both rest and unease.
Sleep often comes in two segments. The first sleep after dusk, followed by a wakeful period for prayer or intimacy, then second sleep until dawn. The modern concept of 8 continuous hours would seem strange to medieval people, whose rest follows nature's rhythms rather than artificial schedules. Now imagine the medieval bath. Contrary to popular belief, people do bathe, though not with modern frequency. The wealthy might have wooden tubs brought to their chambers, filled by servants carrying buckets of heated water. Herbs or flower petals might scent the bath, while a linen sheet at the bottom prevents splinters. Public bathhouses in towns offer steam rooms and communal tubs, though these increasingly gain reputations for illicit activities. For most, washing is a simpler affair, a basin of water and rough soap made from tallow and ashes. Hair might be washed with a mixture of ashes and vinegar, then rinsed in a stream. Teeth are cleaned with cloth-wrapped twigs or mint leaves. Laundry is done at riversides, where women beat dirt from clothes with wooden paddles. The smell of a medieval person would strike us as strong. Wood smoke, sweat, animals, herbs, but not necessarily the overwhelming stench of legend. Cleanliness has its place, even in a world without running water. Let us consider medieval animals. They are everywhere, sharing homes and lives in ways we'd find startling. Dogs sleep by hearths. Cats stalk grain stores. Chickens peck at dirt floors. The family pig is a walking larder, fattening on scraps until slaughter time. Oxen pull plows with stoic patience, their great strength vital to farming. Horses are expensive luxuries, carefully groomed and trained for war or transport. Bees and scabs provide precious honey, the only sweetener available. Falcons and hawks perch regally in noble halls, their jingling bells marking their status as hunting companions. Even wild animals are ever present. Wolves howling in distant forests, foxes raiding hen houses, deer glimpsed fleetingly at woodland edges. The line between domestic and wild is thin, with people and animals living in close, sometimes dangerous proximity. Animals are not pets as we know them, but working partners in life's daily struggle. Now picture the medieval tavern. The low-ceilinged room is hazy with smoke from the central fire, the air thick with the smell of roasting meat and spilled ale. Rough wooden benches line walls darkened by decades of soot and grease. A traveling minstrel tunes his lute in the corner, ready to sing for his supper. dice games and backgammon boards see constant action, along with the occasional brawl over disputed wagers. Travelers share news from distant parts between gulps of mediocre wine. Local laborers unwind after a day's toil, their laughter loud and unrefined. The tavern is part inn, part restaurant, part social hub, a place where classes mix uneasily and tongues loosen with drink. For all its rowdiness, it serves vital functions, a source of news, a place to conduct business, and one of the few venues for simple recreation in a hard world. As sleep draws nearer, let us contemplate medieval silence. In a world without engines or electronics, quiet has a different quality. The absence of human noise reveals nature's sounds, wind in thatch, bird song at dawn, the creak of trees in the forest. Night brings profound stillness, broken only by an owl's call or a barking fox. Even in towns, the background hum we know is absent, making sudden noises, a shout, a hammer blow, a horse's whinny, startlingly sharp. The church bell's toll carries for miles across open countryside, its voice marking time for scattered communities. People are comfortable with silence in ways we might find strange. Long stretches without speech as hands work wool or wood. Songs and stories fill some evenings, but others pass in wordless companionship. This is a world where one can truly hear oneself think, where the lack of constant stimulation allows for deeper reflection and different rhythms of mind. Now imagine the medieval road. It is not the smooth ribbon of asphalt we know, but a dirt track winding according to ancient footsteps. In dry weather, it is dusty. In rain, a quagmire of clinging mud. Wheel ruts run deep where carts have passed for generations. Travelers on foot share the way with ox-drawn wagons, mounted messengers, and flocks of sheep being driven to market. At fords, stones mark the safest crossing points, while bridges, where they exist, charge tolls for passage. Highwaymen lurk in wooded stretches, making group travel safer than going alone. Along the roadside, shrines offer places for prayer and remembrance of those who died on journeys. Pilgrims trudge toward distant cathedrals, their staffs tapping rhythmically on the hard-packed earth. The road connects, but slowly. A day's travel might cover only 15 miles on foot, 30 on horseback. News moves at the same pace as people, making the world vast and mysterious beyond one's immediate surroundings. Let us consider
marks from field work, missing teeth from poor diet, scars from accidents and illnesses. Yet they hold valued knowledge, how to weather a bad harvest, which herbs heal which ailments, the genealogies that settle land disputes. Grandmothers spin yarn while telling stories to wide-eyed children. Grandfathers whittle toys and teach woodcraft. The elderly who can no longer work are cared for by family when possible, though some end their days as beggars at church doors. Respect for age is both cultural norm and practical necessity. In an oral culture, memory is the living library of community wisdom. The old serve as bridges to the past, their recollections keeping alive traditions and histories that might otherwise fade. Their passing is mourned, but death in old age is considered a blessing compared to the many who die young. Now picture the medieval market. Twice weekly, the village square transforms into a bustling arena of commerce. Farmers display vegetables and live chickens in wicker cages. Craftsmen offer iron tools, leather goods, and wooden utensils. Traveling merchants unfold bolts of colorful cloth from distant looms. Their prices high, but their wares irresistible. Housewives haggle over fish fresh from nearby streams, their practiced eyes judging quality. The air rings with the calls of vendors, the bleating of sheep in the livestock pen, the clang of the blacksmith's hammer at his makeshift forge. The Lord's tax collector moves through the crowd, taking his percentage of sales. Beggars work the edges, hoping for charity from those in a generous mood. Food stalls sell hot meat pies and roasted nuts, their aromas mixing with less pleasant smells of animals and humanity. For villagers who rarely travel, the market is both necessity and entertainment, a chance to see new faces, hear news, and break routine with small luxuries like spices or ribbons. As we near sleep's embrace, let us contemplate medieval sleep itself. It comes early, rising with the sun's setting, and ends at dawn's first light. Beds are simple, straw-filled mattresses on rope-strung frames for those of means, piles of hay in corners for the poor. Linen sheets are prized possessions, changed perhaps seasonally, if at all. Night clothes are a luxury. Most sleep in their day wear or undergarments. Fleas and lice are constant bedfellows, making scratching a nocturnal soundtrack. Dreams are taken seriously, sometimes considered messages from God or portents of the future. The night is divided into watches, with people sometimes rising briefly at midnight for prayer or a snack before returning to slumber. Without electric lights disrupting circadian rhythms, sleep follows natural patterns, deep and restorative despite the physical discomforts. To modern senses it would seem impossible impossibly hard. To medieval people, simply the way life is, unquestioned and unremarkable.
Let us now drift into thoughts of medieval gardens. Behind wattle fences, herbs grow in neat rows. Rosemary for remembrance, sage for cleansing, mint for sweetening breath. The lady of the manor inspects her rose bushes, their petals destined for perfumes and medicines. In monastery cloisters, symmetrical beds of medicinal plants surround a central well, their order reflecting divine harmony. Peasants tend small plots by their cottages, onions and leeks for the pot, chamomile for tea, poppies for pain relief. Every plant serves multiple purposes. Nothing is grown solely for beauty. Bees hum from flower to flower, their hives tended for precious wax and honey. The garden is both pharmacy and pantry, its bounty carefully harvested and preserved. In winter, the bare earth sleeps beneath straw coverings, waiting for spring's renewal. Now imagine the medieval forest, a realm of towering oaks and whispering beeches, their canopies filtering sunlight into dappled patterns on the leaf-strewn floor. This is no wilderness, but carefully managed land. Coppiced trees regrow from stumps to provide endless poles for building and fuel. Pannage rites allow villagers to fatten pigs on autumn acorns. Foresters patrol for poachers, while charcoal burners tend smoldering mounds in hidden clearings. The woods provide not just timber, but food, nuts, berries, mushrooms, gathered by knowing hands. Yet danger lurks in its depths. Wolves real and imagined, outlaws hiding from the law, spirits said to lead travelers astray. The forest is both resource and mystery, its depths never fully tamed even as its edges are steadily pushed back by expanding fields. Consider now medieval textiles. From sheep's back to woven cloak, the process is laborious and skilled. Women spin wool into yarn as they walk. The spindles were a constant soundtrack to daily life. The loom's rhythmic clatter fills cottage and workshop alike, the weaver's hands moving by long practice. Dyes come from nature, wove for blue, matter for red, weld for yellow, each batch slightly different. Fullers stomp cloth in troughs of stale urine to thicken it, their workshops reeking. Tailors cut carefully to waste no precious fabric, their needles flashing in candlelight. A single outfit might represent months of work from raw wool to finished garment. Clothes are patched and repurposed until they literally fall apart, the remnants used for quilts or rags. In a world without synthetic fibers, every thread connects back to the land and the labor of human hands. Now picture the medieval blacksmith, his forge
glows like a small sun in the dim workshop. The bellows wheeze, feeding the flames. Hammer strikes ring out in steady rhythm as red-hot iron yields to skilled blows. Nails, hinges, plowshares, and horseshoes take shape under his calloused hands. The smith is part magician to villagers. Only he can master the stubborn metal. Only he knows the secrets of tempering steel. Children cluster at the doorway, mesmerized by the sparks dance. Farmers bring broken tools for repair, paying in kind with eggs or grain. The smithy is warm even in deepest winter, a gathering place where news is exchanged along with goods. Each village's survival depends on this one man's strength and knowledge, passed down through generations, but never written down. The clang of hammer on anvil is the sound of civilization being maintained, one piece of iron at a time. Let us contemplate medieval timekeeping. Without clocks, the day is measured by nature's signs, the sun's position, the length of shadows, the crowing of roosters. Church bells mark the canonical hours for those near enough to hear them. Sundials grace monastery walls, useless on cloudy days. Hourglasses measure sermons or cooking times with trickling sand. At night, the stars guide those who can read them, while others estimate time by how long a candle burns. There is no precision, no minutes or seconds, only rough approximations. Appointments are kept by mid-morning or after vespers. This fluid sense of time creates a mental world very different from our regimented hours. Tasks take as long as they take. Meetings happen when everyone arrives. Journeys end when the destination is reached. The body's natural rhythms govern activity more than any mechanical device. In winter, work ends early. In summer, it continues until light fails. Time is elastic, stretching and contracting with the seasons. Now imagine medieval childbirth. The mother-to-be is surrounded by women. Her mother, sisters, the village midwife with her bag of herbs and charms. The birthing chamber is kept dark and warm, windows covered to keep out evil spirits. The midwife coaxes labor along with potions of ergot and pennyroyal, her hands skilled from decades of experience. Birth stools allow gravity to assist, while nearby a cradle stands ready. Prayers to Saint Margaret, patron of childbirth, mingle with the mother's groans. If labor stalls, relics might be placed on her belly, or special incantations whispered. The danger is ever present. Death comes to mother or child, or both, with frightening regularity. Should the worst happen, the church offers comfort, but no answers. Yet when all goes well, the newborn's cry brings joy and relief, the start of another thread in the tapestry of village life. The child is washed in warm water and salt, then swaddled tightly against the world's harms. Life, against all odds, continues. Let us drift into thoughts of medieval books. Each one is a rare treasure, painstakingly created over months or years. In the scriptorium's quiet, monks bend over parchment pages, their quills scratching out perfect lines of text. Ink is made from oak galls and iron salts, its rich blackness enduring for centuries. Gold leaf glows on illuminated letters, applied with breath-held precision. The vellum comes from calf skin, scraped thin and smooth. A single Bible requiring hundreds of animals. Books are chained to library desks, their value beyond most men's incomes. To own even one volume marks you as wealthy and learned. Stories are more often heard than read, with traveling minstrels reciting tales from memory. The written word has power bordering on magical. Those who can decipher it hold keys to knowledge most will never access. When a new book arrives at a monastery, it is celebrated like a visiting prince, its wisdom to be copied and preserved for future generations. Now consider medieval walls, not just fortifications, but living surfaces that record the passage of time. Church walls glow with frescoes of saints and biblical scenes, their colors bright in candlelight. Castle chambers display tapestries that both decorate and insulate, their woven stories unfolding over yards of wool. Even peasant cottages have whitewashed walls marked with protective symbols, crosses, hex signs, initials carved into beams. Graffiti appears where you least expect it. Pilgrims' marks on cathedral stones, prisoner scratchings in dungeon walls, lovers' initials hidden in quiet corners. Walls bear witness to lives. The soot-blackened beams of a kitchen, the smoothed stones where generations have touched a stair rail, the faint outlines where furniture once stood. They absorb prayers and curses alike, standing silent as history unfolds around them. In a world without paper or photographs, walls serve as memory keepers, their surfaces telling stories to those who know how to look. As sleep draws nearer, let us contemplate medieval doors. Heavy oak planks banded with iron, they pivot on stout hinges, separate safety from danger, private from public, sacred from profane. To be out of doors is to be exposed and vulnerable. To cross a threshold is to enter a different realm with its own rules and rituals. In winter, doors are kept shut against the cold. In summer, they stand ajar to welcome breeze and neighbor alike. They mark the boundaries of lives, swinging open and closed, like the seasons themselves. Now picture medieval windows, few and small. They are precious sources of light and ventilation. Castle windows are narrow arrowed slits, widening slightly inward to form stone seats. Church windows soar upward, their stained glass transforming sunlight into jewel-toned radiance. Peasant homes might have only shuttered openings covered with oiled parchment in winter. Glass is a luxury for the wealthy, its imperfect panes distorting the view like watery mirrors. Window seats become favorite spots for sewing or reading, catching every possible photon. At night, shutters are barred against both cold and intruders, making interiors stuffy and dark. The play of light through a window marks the day's passage, a patch of sunlight moving across the floor like a slow sundial. Through these limited portals, the outside world is glimpsed in fragments. A patch of sky, a slice of courtyard, a distant hill. The window frames reality like a living painting, its composition changing with the hour and season. Let us contemplate medieval night skies. Without light pollution, the heavens blaze with countless stars, their patterns as familiar as old friends. The Milky Way arches overhead like a celestial road, so bright it casts faint shadows. Villagers know the constellations and their stories. Orion the Hunter, Ursa Major circling the pole star, the wandering planets that move against the fixed backdrop. The moon's phases mark time more reliably than any calendar. Its light bright enough to travel by. Shooting stars streak across the blackness, prompting quick prayers. Comets appear without warning, sparking fear and wonder. On winter nights, the aurora dances at the northern horizon, its shimmering curtains seeming like heaven's gates ajar. The sky is both clock and compass, map and storybook. Sailors steer by it, farmers plant by it, shepherds watch through long night vigils. In an age without electric lights, the night sky is not just beautiful, but useful, its rhythms guiding human activity just as they govern tides and seasons. universal human response to life's absurdities. In a world full of danger and uncertainty, the ability to laugh may be as vital as bread or fire. It binds communities, eases tensions, and makes bearable what might otherwise overwhelm. The medieval world, for all its hardships, was not without joy. As we neared sleep's embrace, let us contemplate medieval endings. The church bell tolls for a funeral, its slow notes counting out a life completed. The corpse is washed and wrapped in a shroud, then carried to the churchyard on a wooden bier. Graves are shallow by our standards, the earth turned over frequently as the churchyard fills. Mourners wear black if they can afford the dye, or simple undyed wool if not. The priest's Latin prayers are only partly understood, but their rhythm comforts. After burial, the family might host a modest feast, ale and bread for neighbors who came to pay respects. In time, the grave will be reused, the bones transferred to the charnel house to make room for new arrivals. Memorial brasses in the church floor will be walked over until their inscriptions wear away. Life continues as it must. The dead live on in memory for a generation or two, then fade into the anonymous mass of ancestors. Only the wealthy can afford lasting monuments. Most leave behind only a name in parish records, if that. Yet each life, however briefly remembered, was a world unto itself, full of hopes and fears, loves and losses, now quiet as the grave itself. And so the great wheel turns, as it has for centuries, as it will for centuries more.
Now, as night deepens and your eyelids grow heavy, let us contemplate the quietest hours of the medieval world, when all have retired to their rest, and only the occasional night watchman paces his rounds. The village lies still beneath the stars, its thatched roofs silvered by moonlight. The last embers in the hearth glow faintly, barely warming the sleeping forms huddled nearby. Even the animals are quiet. The dogs curled in doorways, the oxen drowsing in their stalls, the chickens motionless on their perches. The only sounds are the whisper of wind through rye fields, the distant hooting of an owl, the creak of a weather vane turning slowly above the church tower. This is the time when time itself seems suspended between one day and the next, when the world holds its breath before dawn's first light. In these silent hours, dreams come unbidden. The farmer dreams of ripe harvests, the housewife of full larders, the child of festival sweets. Their faces in sleep are smooth, unlined by the cares of daylight. The straw beneath them rustles softly with each slow breath. Perhaps they dream of comfort
comforts we would find simple, a new cloak, a hearty meal, a day free from toil. Or perhaps their sleeping minds wander strange paths we cannot imagine. The medieval night is long, especially in winter, and dreams unfold like tapestries in the endless dark. Outside, the stars wheel slowly across the sky, their ancient patterns unchanged by human affairs. The castle too sleeps, its great hall empty of feasters, its armory quiet, its banners hanging motionless in still air. The sentries doze at their posts, leaning on their spears. In the Lord's chamber, the last candle gutters out, leaving only the faint smell of beeswax. The stones of the keep, warmed by day's sun, now slowly release their heat into the cool night. Somewhere a mouse scurries along a beam, its tiny feet making no sound audible to human ears. The medieval night knows no artificial light, only moonlight when clouds permit, or the occasional torch flickering briefly as a servant passes between buildings. This is darkness complete and profound, wrapping the world like a soft blanket. Even the monastery is still. The last canonical hours have been sung, the last prayers whispered. The monks sleep in their cells, their tonsured heads resting on hard pillows. The scriptorium lies dark, its inks and parchments waiting for morning's labor. In the herb garden, dew forms on leaves of sage and thyme, their medicinal scents rising faintly in the damp air. The church stands empty, its altar bare, but for the eternal lamp flickering before the sacrament. The strict schedule of prayers and work is suspended for these few hours, allowing both body and spirit to rest. The rule of Saint Benedict mandates this balance, that even the devout must sleep, must dream, must renew their strength for God's service. As your breathing slows and deepens, imagine the medieval countryside in this hush before dawn. Fields lie fallow or sprouting depending on the season. Forests stand dark and mysterious at the edges of cleared land. Rivers glint here and there where moonlight catches their movement. The roads are empty, but for the occasional night traveler, a messenger with urgent news, a pilgrim pressing on toward some distant shrine, a peddler hoping to reach the next town by morning. The landscape itself seems to sleep, its contours softened by darkness, its colors muted to shades of gray and silver. All waits for the cock's first crow, that ancient alarm clock that will rouse the world to another day of labor and life. In these final moments before sleep claims you completely, let your mind drift like smoke from a dying fire, up through cottage rafters, over sleeping villages, across moonlit fields. There is no past or future in this nighttime world, only the endless present of rest. The concerns of daylight, hunger, cold, work, duty, all fade to insignificance. The medieval night knows your modern world not, and your modern world knows little of this profound peace. Let the silence of centuries wash over you, the accumulated rest of generations who rose and slept with the sun. Their struggles are over. Yours are suspended for these precious hours of renewal. The great wheel of time turns slowly, and you are but one spoke in its eternal rotation. Now the stars begin to pale. The eastern horizon lightens almost imperceptibly. The first birds stir in the trees, though they do not yet sing. A cool breeze rustles the leaves, carrying the scent of damp earth. Somewhere a milkmaid rises, yawning, to begin her dawn chores. The baker stokes his oven's fire. A fisherman checks his nets by the riverbank, but you need not join them yet. For you, the night remains warm and welcoming. Let your breathing match the slow rhythm of the sleeping world. Let your thoughts dissolve like mist in morning sun. The past is gone, the future not yet here. There is only this moment, this rest, this gentle surrender to the darkness behind your eyelids. The medieval world fades now, its smells and sounds receding like the tide. The images blur and soften at the edges. The voices of long-dead farmers and housewives, monks and knights, grow faint and far away. What remains is the essential human experience shared across centuries, the need for rest, the comfort of darkness, the promise of dawn yet to come. Your bed is softer than theirs, your room warmer, your night more secure. But the sleep that comes for you is the same that came for them. A blanket of forgetfulness, a small daily death, a necessary retreat from waking life. So let go now. Release the last fragments of thought like leaves floating downstream. The night watchman has made his final round. The candles have burned to their sockets. The embers are cold ash. All is still. All is peace. The great book of history closes its pages for you tonight. Tomorrow will come soon enough, with all its light and noise and activity. But now there is only quiet darkness and rest, deep rest, as the